Hey you guys, welcome aboard Crab Central Station. It's kind of rainy and cold outside, so I got some coffee and your tank submissions. Cozied up here in bed and I'm gonna do some tank reviews. You know guys, before we get into these awesome tanks that you have submitted, just a reminder that we all started somewhere in this journey. Likely we started with poor information or little information. And so as I review these tanks, just keep in mind that all of these are on different parts of their journey, from the beginning, middle to end, and we're all always learning. So please just be respectful of that and be encouraging of each other. That's what's great about this community, is that we can all come together and learn from one another, grow from one another, and make a better life for our hermit crabs. So keep that in mind as we go through these tanks. All right, our first tank comes from Kaylee. And she says, "Hi, my crab habitat is a 20-gallon aquarium. It houses my 2 hermit crabs. I rescued them and I've had them for a year. I've started adding to my tank and it is still not finished." All right, Kaylee, let's take a look. First of all, I love that you rescued instead of purchased, so that's amazing. And it looks like you have really good deep sub, well over your 6 inches, I would say. You have climbing structures and some natural wood in here. I can even see one of your little friends climbing on there. You have a nice lounger in the corner, which is really cool. And you know, it's the reptile ones that are kind of green plastic, and so you don't have problems with molding, which is good. Easy for them to climb on as well. I see that you have extra shells in here and some fresh foods. And you have 2 different pools, so I'm going to assume that's freshwater and saltwater. And you've got lighting up here on top of your tank as well. So you've got a lot of really good things going on. I do have a few suggestions for you. You can see right here in this picture, Kaylee, that you are using, it looks like, heat lamps as probably your heat source and your day-night source. And those types of lamps actually have a reputation of overheating certain spots within the tank, making them hot spots, which can burn your hermit crabs. And they also zap your humidity. And so I would highly suggest that you get a under the tank heat mat from Bean Farm or from Reptile Basics. And you can just use a regular old aquarium light, like an LED aquarium light, for your light source. Even a desk lamp actually works fine for that as well. I also see here on your tank that you're using a mesh lid with your 20-gallon tank. And although they do secure the tank well, they do not hold in humidity. So if you're struggling with humidity, that's probably the 2 reasons right there, is the heat lamp and the open screen mesh lid. So I would suggest that you either cover that mesh lid with saran wrap or Glad wrap or like cardboard and then tape it down, or you could replace it altogether with something like glass or chloroplast or something like that. And you will see that really holds in your humidity and your heat a lot better. And then my other suggestion for you would just be your gauges on the back of your tank. Those are analog instead of digital, and they are known for being inaccurate. And so to get better readings, I would invest in a digital gauge. All right, Kaylee, thank you so much for your submission. The next tank that we have comes from Renee. She says, "Hey, I have recently gotten a heat mat so that when I turn my heat lamp off to go to sleep at night, it's still warm in the tank. I have a bowl for saltwater and freshwater. The saltwater bowl is deeper than the freshwater. My sand is 2 inches deep and I have 5 crabs all up. Their names are Pebbles, Flash, Capri, Citrus, and Emir. I'm looking to get more plants for them to climb on and get another house to hang out, as well as find a place for a walker wheel. Thanks for being a guiding light in the world of crabs." Thank you. Very sweet, Renee. All right, let's take a look at your tank. Looks like you've got some good stuff going on. As you mentioned, you have 2 water pools, 1 salt and 1 fresh. They do look deep enough for your crabs to submerge in, so well done. You have climbing structures in here with the nets as well as the greenery in the corner. It looks like you have a large plate of awesome fresh foods. I'm sure your crabs are loving their buffet. And you do have a nice sand substrate. It looks very fluffy, kind of like the beach. Very nice. A few things that I definitely would work on is to go ahead and deepen your substrate and add some eco-earth. The eco-earth actually helps to mold those molt tunnels when they go down and hold those tunnels for them. It also helps to raise the humidity within your tank. And 2 inches is good for starting out with a PPS tank, but for a forever tank, you definitely want to have 3 times the depth of your largest crab, or 6 inches minimum. And so you could definitely use some deeper sub in your tank. I would also say just keep an eye on your Craboo's hidey hut and your climbing structure that has the dyed wood structures. Just if the crabs start to pick at them or scratch at them, they can become toxic if they were to ingest them. And so keep an eye on that. And if that happens, just remove them from your tank. Also, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the heat lamp and the heat mat that you mentioned in your email and that I can see here on your tank. I would just encourage you to go ahead and not use that heat lamp at all. For one, it creates hot spots within your tank because it's very directed, and it also zaps the humidity in your tank. So instead, you could use just a regular old LED aquarium light or a desk lamp for your day-night cycle. And as far as heating your tank, you do have a heat mat. However, you're going to need a bigger one once you stop using that heat lamp. So you actually want the heat mat to go across the entire back of your tank above the substrate level. And so you'll want to measure that before you order it online. We love Bean Farm. Reptile Basics also has Ultratherm heat mats, which will work great for your tank. Finally, I can't tell what size tank this is, but you did mention that you had 5 crabs. So on general rule, we say 10 gallons per crab, which would be about a 50-gallon tank. Again, I don't know what size tank yours is, but it looks a little bit crowded maybe for 5 crabs, so look into that as well. We have some videos that we will link in the iCard in the description below for you, Renee, that talks about the substrate and heat and humidity within your crab habitat. But it looks like you've got a great start here, and I can tell that you love your crabs. Thanks so much for submitting your tank. Ghost Lobster writes, "Hi, my crab habitat is 10 gallons, but I have a 20-gallon shipped to my home soon. I know the deadline is, so I might as well just send this right now. There are 2 small hermit crabs and 1 medium hermit crab that I've had them for 1 year. They have a salt and freshwater bowl, 2 hides. In the picture, the other hide is hidden by the fake plant on the right. I give them a day and night cycle from the lights in my room, as well as 4 inches of substrate. They also have a heat mat, and I spray them every day as needed. I'm open to constructive criticism, and I hope that the only problems are the size and my terrible typing skills." All right, Ghost Lobster. Let's take a look at these pictures that you have submitted. Again, you're getting a new tank, and chances are you probably have that by the time this video makes it out, but hopefully these tips can help you even in your new tank. I'm glad that you're upgrading from a 10 to a 20. Ideally, you'll want a 30 for your 3 crabs eventually, but like you said, you have 2 small, so I think your 20 gallons is going to work fine for right now. You have 4 inches of substrate, which is a great start. Like you said, you have crabs that are smaller, so you want 3 times the depth of your largest crab, or 6 inches. So maybe try to add a couple more inches when you can. Also looks like you're using all eco earth. I would go ahead and do your 5-to-1 ratio of play sand to eco earth. And the reason for that is it really helps to hold molt caves while they're down molting, and it's the correct balance for your humidity and keeping that substrate healthy. So we've seen in the past from many tanks that end up having some trouble with mold and mildew or bacterial growth come from tanks that have too much eco earth. So I would definitely try to get your ratios worked out as you set up that new tank. You do have 2 pools, so good job with that. You have your fresh water and your salt water. The depth of them may need to be increased as your crabs begin to grow more so that they can fully submerge. It looks like you have some fresh food in this bowl here. I would add some more options, especially in the protein section, because you do have 3 crabs in kind of a smaller area, and so protein is going to be very, very important to be offering every single day. You do have some hides in here, like you said, the one back by the plant, which offers something for them to climb on as well as safety. So that is an excellent option. That's an option right there. That's really good for your hermit crabs. The hided log that you have here looks like perhaps a pine one that you find at like Petco and things like that. And while it's a great hiding resource, it's actually a toxic wood for them. So I would suggest you go ahead and take out that pine log. They do make some that are resin, and so they look like wood if you like the natural look of a tank, which from your pictures, it looks like maybe that's what you're going for. But it's resin, so it's safe for them, and still it offers that hiding. So you also have these climbing vines over here to the left, which the hermit crabs love those. We have them in all of our tanks as well. Let's talk about your heat. So I do see that you're using a heat mat on the back of your tank, and that's the correct place for your heat mat, but you'll definitely need a bigger one or an additional one on your new tank. You want it to cover the whole back of your tank above the substrate level. So look into getting one of those. And I noticed, as you said in your email as well, that you're spraying as needed. So I don't know what you're using as a lid on your tank, because in your pictures it's open, maybe just to take the picture, I don't know. But if you're having trouble with humidity, it could be that your heat source is not big enough, or it could be that you don't have a sealed tank. And so that's why you're having to spray. But ideally, you don't want to be spraying because you want a consistent humidity in your tank at all times. And spraying daily can cause flooding and, again, add to those mold and mildew and bacterial growths within your substrate and that sort of thing. So you really want to avoid having to mist and spray on a daily basis. So I would check out our video on heat and humidity, and even some tips and tricks on how to boost heat or boost your humidity. We also have a video in Tat Chats that tells you how to mix your substrate in your 5-to-1 ratio that we talked about earlier. So those would all be super helpful for you. And one more little tip for you on your gauge. It looks like you're using an analog gauge, and the digital gauges are much more accurate, and you want to place that in the middle of your tank, a couple inches off your substrate for the best readings. All right, Ghost Lobster, thank you so much, and good luck in your journey. We appreciate your entry. So the last tank review I have for you in this video comes from Brian, and he actually submitted all 3 of his tanks, so we'll go over them each one at a time. He's got, starting out here, a 125 gallon, 12 inches of substrate, 5-to-1 place sand to EcoEarth. I have 12 crabs in there, purple pinchers, Ecuadorians, and 1 strawberry. They also have 2.5 gallon pools with bubblers and filters. It has 3 shell shops, moss pits, one above one of the pools, which has a ladder with a safe way for them to get down, a bunch of cholla and mopani wood for them to climb and sleep on, and a bunch of fake plants hanging around the moss on the substrate and leaf litter for them to eat and hide in. All right. So this is a big tank, one of my biggest tanks, also 125. I love it. Lots of room for them to climb around and be enriched with just having actual room to move. So I love the 125s for that. Your substrate is great. You've got wonderful depth. You've got the right ratio. Lots of hides, lots of things to climb on, nice big pools that you're filtering and bubbling. So I know your crabs are loving that, especially that strawberry and Ecuadorian. You've got moss pits for them to hide in, shell shops for them. So you are hitting the nail on the head with this tank for sure, Brian. I do have one thing that I'm noticing in this picture. It looks like maybe you're using some type of fogger to add some humidity to your tank. And I would just really caution you against using foggers, as they can really saturate your substrate over time and lead to flooding or bacterial blooms and things like that. And it seems like everything's going fine, and then bam, it just happens before you know it, where you have a flood. So you have big pools that are being filtered and bubbled. You're using LED lights on top, it looks like, with closed and enclosed lid. So I don't think you should have to use the fogger. Check out our video on tips and tricks for humidity if that is why you're using that, and hopefully we can find you something else that will fix the problem that is safer in your crab habitat. All right, moving on to the 75 gallon. Has 12 inches of substrate, 5-to-1 placed into Eco Earth, 6 crabs in there, all purple pinchers. There are 2.5 gallon pools with bubblers and filters, 2 shell shops, coconut hide for them, a bunch of fake plants to climb around and hide in and sleep. All right. So I love how you just make your tanks look very natural. I'm sure your crabs are loving that too. It just feels like home. So like you said, they've got some hidey huts, the coconut houses. I can see one of your little crabs in there actually. And, you know, it just looks like they have a lot of places to feel safe. It looks like the Eco Earth is a little bit heavy, or maybe you just have sprinkled it on top of the sub perhaps in this picture. But you have lots of extra shells for them, so well done. I love that you're using the light filters as ladders because the crabs can definitely use those easily to get in and out of those pools that you have. So well done there. You've got both of your pools. One thing that just kind of sticks out to me as I look at this picture is that you have a light inside the crab habitat, and it's a heat lamp fixture. I don't know if you actually have like a heat light bulb in there or if you're just using it as your light source. If it is actually heating your crab habitat, I would definitely be careful of that because it's not very far off of your sub. It's definitely going to create a hot spot in that area where it's concentrated, which could be harmful, and it's going to be zapping your humidity in that tank as well. So I would definitely go with the LED light like you have on your 125. It's outside of your tank up on top, and using heat mats for your heat source. Okay, and your third tank that you submitted is a 55 gallon. It has 12 inches of substrate, 5-to-1 ratio, 4 crabs, all purple pinchers, medium size, critter keepers with bubblers for pools, 1 shell shop, and a couple places for them to hide. It has 2 plastic logs for them to hide in. It also has a live plant that is planted in a pot that does not allow the roots to disturb the sub and has Eco Earth and worm castings as the soil. All right. So I kind of love that you're bringing up a live plant in your crab habitat. It's not something that we really talk about often, but there are actually some safe plants that you guys can use in your crab habitat, which helps with air quality, and they're safe so your crabs can actually eat them. Of course, know that going into it, you'll be replacing your live plant as your crabs eat it. But I also love, Brian, that you brought up it is planted in its own pot. And not in the actual sub itself, because obviously real plants, you guys, are going to grow root systems underneath the sub, which will definitely harm molting crabs over time. We've had a crab molting for a year, so those roots would definitely be growing down by my molting crab had I planted a real plant in my sub, okay? So make sure that if you're going to have actual plants, real plants in your crab habitat, that they're planted in their own pot. For us, we actually cover it with craft mesh. Like if this was my pot, I'd put craft mesh here and just cut a hole for the plant to grow out of. That way the crabs can't even dig down in that pot that my plant is in. And so to me, that's the safest way to have live plants. And we will put a link in the description below of the safe plants. So if that's something that you guys are interested in adding to your crab habitat. Okay, back to this tank. So again, great depth in your substrate. You definitely know what you're doing there. You've got big pools with your bubblers, so you're adding to your humidity. It looks like you're using the LED hood light here. I don't see anything inside, so that's good. And you've got your shell shop and your hides, lots of climbing, lots of hiding. So it looks like you've got a lot of really good stuff going on, Brian, and we can definitely all take a few tips from your tanks going on here. So we appreciate your submission. Thank you so much. That was so fun. Thanks you guys for submitting your tanks. You know, we still have several left from that original submission. So if you're still waiting to see your tank, hang tight. We will get there as quickly as we can and review all of them that you have submitted, you guys. If you're wanting to submit a tank, follow us on our social media site so that you can hear when we ask for those submissions and you can get yours in as quickly as possible. We will continue to review tanks, you guys. We're so excited to do that for you. We learn from you and the other viewers learn from you, and it's all part of our journey. So this is super fun. I love getting to do tank reviews. So if you have not already, subscribe to our channel, like this video, comment down below, be encouraging to all these folks as they're on their journey for taking care of their hermit crabs, and follow us on our social medias if you haven't already done that, you guys. And we will see you on the next video aboard the CCS train. Take care. Bye.